This is The Dig on the Huskers Radio Network podcast. Powered by Emeritus. Featuring Nebraska volleyball assistant coach Jaylen Reyes. Here's your host, Jessica Coody.
Welcome back to The Dig and welcome back, Jaylen Reyes. Jaylen, I got to start first of all, because the last time you were here, I have to apologize to you. It was actually your birthday, and I didn't know it till we stopped recording. So I apologize. Happy birthday. I should have said it on the last episode.
Thanks. I'm usually one that does not tell people when his birthday is. So I take absolutely no offense. I almost wanted to thank you for not saying anything.
Oh, well, my bad. I missed the email that comes out where they say whose birthdays are for the week. Apparently I didn't read them that morning and I just had no idea. I was like, oh, I feel awful. Like, what a horrible host.
No worries.
To not even know the person that's with me it's his birthday.
No worries. No worries at all.
Oh, well, thanks for being back on with us. Hey, I have to start with, you got an interview from Coach Cook. Coach Cook interviewed you. How was that?
That was weird. I'm not going to lie. That was really weird. One, it was really weird that I was being interviewed after a game. Usually it's like I'll do my NCAA tournament because Danny or Coach Cook can't do it because of rules, or if we've had a couple events this year where Danny has to go straight to the thing. So they're like, well, let's get the guy that's been talking for the last 2 hours. Let's just go have him talk to the other guy that's been talking for the last 2 hours. So that was interesting. When Lindsay told me, hey, you're going to do the post-game interview, I'm like, with JB? She's like, no, on TV with John. I'm like, wow. And it was a trip, just like standing before we went on air, just standing there seeing him with a microphone, wearing an NET tag. And like, if you were to told me this, hey, 12 months ago, I would have never believed you.
Yeah. How was he as an interviewer?
It was good. It was, I could tell he
should have just come like Lauren does to him. He should have done that.
He didn't do that. He definitely sugarcoated how he wanted to ask some of the questions. And it's funny because I'm like, there's a couple of things that I thought that I knew he was gonna ask about, but I was like, I wonder how he's gonna do this in front of all these people. So it was it was cool, and it's awesome to see him. Even he's talked to me about he's got to get better from his first match to his next match. He's just like how he was as a coach. It's just different, and obviously there's a lot more people listening to him now than, the 13, 14, 15 players and staff members during matches.
I think he's filling in for Lauren here coming up soon on the radio. So
oh, wow.
He's getting lots of opportunities. I mean, what can he not do? I
mean, I actually think I think if you look at basketball and football, their sports are so interesting because you have, and that doesn't mean if you didn't coach or play, you can't be an expert. That's not what I'm saying. But it's so cool to watch and listen to.
Like a Saban?
Yeah, a Saban's awesome. But even watching the Manning cast of Monday Night Football and listening to Eli and Peyton, sure, they're kind of, they're throwing darts at each other. They're interviewing cool people during the game. But when, it's cool to listen to and learn about football from two people that, especially like Peyton Manning, where he's talking about the quarterback, they're talking about certain things that a person that has no idea about football, it's like, wow, I actually feel like I'm learning something. Right. Sure, you get your celebrity interviews and stuff like that. The girlfriend really loves watching that part of it, but I actually feel like I learned something out of that. I think it's cool that him and Mary Wise with ESPN from Florida is doing that. I think it's just going to bring more knowledge to the sport, and it's not just. Hopefully, the fans are taking away more of, maybe why certain teams are serving the ball and making some errors, or why certain people are setting this specific set in a situation. I think that's something that maybe coaches can bring more attention to, and I think. At the end of the day, knowledge is power, and the more people learn about a certain sport, hopefully it causes people to either play it or watch it or support it.
Yeah, I learn every time I do this podcast. I sometimes ask you guys what maybe be a dumb question to the volleyball fan that might know everything, but I learn so much because I think that's what's fun about having these conversations each week is allowing to kind of, and especially your knowledge, because you always compare it to other sports, which I do have one of those coming up later. Like
Go for it.
You have a, like in basketball or like in golf, like you always throw one of those in there. So I always appreciate that too. Okay, but let's start with the big takeaways from the first 2 Big Ten Conference wins. What were the positives? What were some of the areas? Okay, we got to get better at that.
Positives, a lot of positives. I thought Bergen Riley, I mean, I think she's been playing great, but I thought she played awesome this last week. You know, numbers wise, she got a lot of people involved. She's being more offensive, which we're asking her to do. And I think just looking at numbers wise, she can keep doing, if that makes sense. You know, like she's attacking on 2 at a high clip. And if we pass it good enough, it's almost, if you look at numbers wise, it's almost, she should be doing it more, you know, and that will lead to the defense having to kind of game plan for her. And it just opens up other things. You know, it opens up, maybe blockers have to pay attention to her when she's in the front row, so they can't be sending 2 blockers to Andy, or the middle blocker is honed in on her. So if we set maybe a back row attack to Harper, the middle blocker can't just be sitting there looking at Harper. So it just opens up the floor for everybody. But I thought she did like a really, really nice job. And even Campbell Flynn, when she came in, especially in the Maryland match, I thought she did an awesome job. The other thing I thought we did really well, especially starting set 2 on during Michigan and then parlayed it into the Maryland match, was I thought as a team, we served the ball really well. I know that's been a focus for us, focus for Danny, Kelly, and Brennan, is like we need to start serving the ball a little more aggressively. And that doesn't necessarily mean aces, but just putting the other team in stressful situations. And I thought from set 2 on, I didn't think we did a great job early against Michigan. And I think that was more of a game plan mishap by us. But once we got to set 2 on, you know, and then the 3 sets against Maryland, I thought we served the ball really, really well. There's a lot of positives, if I'm being honest. Those are the ones that stick out of my head. And then for me, it's just serve receive, I think, is something that we need to continue to work on. And typically early in the season, and this is a saying Coach Cook used to talk about, is like early in the season, and I know it's, you know, it feels like we've been playing volleyball forever now, but we're really only, you know, the season typically is 14 weeks long, regular season. We had an extra week, the AVCA week. So for us, it's 15 weeks. We're only in week 7. So we're about halfway. So it's still in the early stages, but he used to say at the beginning of the year, usually serving is ahead of the passing. So I think hopefully as our serving gets better each and every day in the gym, our passing will get better. But I think a lot of it is just communication between passers. I feel like we're giving up some aces just because certain gaps or seams between the passers, we can communicate a little more. You know, if I had to pick one, that's probably it. You know, there's random things, numbers that us coaches, we can dive into the nuts and bolts, and you know, you can poke holes in certain things and stuff like that. But I would say, like, hey, communication and passing, especially maybe pre-serve, we can do a lot better job of to make sure, hey, once the ball goes in there, we've literally talked 2 or 3 seconds before of what's going on. I think that's something that we've been emphasizing these last couple of days, and hopefully we can take that to State College on Friday.
How much is that for this group, learning to do that without Alexi Rodriguez? Like, I mean, how good was she at that maybe you're having to figure out different players, how they communicate in that way?
Yeah, I think one thing about Lexi was she was so good at that, and it was just, she would just take it, you know? It was almost like you didn't even need to communicate with her, and she didn't need to communicate with you, because if it was in between us, you kind of knew. Obviously, I didn't pass next to her in games, but I bet if you brought Lainey, Olivia, Harper, Taylor in here, just because they're the returners that got to play with her last year, it was just kind of taken care of. You know, it's kind of one of those things where I always thought, like, we wouldn't really miss Lexi until she wasn't here anymore, and then realize, like, wow, we took a lot of, I'm not saying we took things for granted, but she eliminated a lot of problems or a lot of potential issues. She just eliminated because, one, how talented she was, how confident she was, and how quickly she could read the game. And, you know, I think we're doing a really, really good job, you know, anyway. But I just think in general, it's very rare you lose arguably the best player ever to play that position and you get better. You know, it's kind of, I don't think we're bad. I think we're pretty good, but it's very rare you lose somebody like that, a generational talent, and you can say, oh yeah, we're better. I don't think you can say that in any sport, any team, right? But I think that's something that we're looking for and that we need to get better at. And to a degree, it's okay that we're not perfect at it right now. And, each day, can we get better heading into, deeper into Big Ten play and obviously starting here on Friday.
So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is, Virginia Adriano, and she's really emerged here especially since we talked to you. And one of the things that Laura brought up when she was on the radio broadcast is maybe the setting was a little bit higher. Bergen was setting her a little bit higher. Was that just a work in progress, or what does that process look like to get Virginia really going and that connection with Bergen?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. I think fundamentally Virginia has and still has a lot of things to work on with her footwork and her timing. And when you hit a volleyball, in its simplest form, you want to start slow and accelerate into the volleyball. So if you start really fast and then have to slow down and decelerate as you're jumping or even as you're swinging at the ball in the air, it leads to errors, leads to mishits. It leads to, you're not going to hit the ball as hard as you can, as high as you can, right? So that's where timing with the setter matters. But a lot of it, I think, was she's still working on. It's not like we're anywhere close to this finished product here. But she's working on, making sure she's consistently slow to fast. And hey, if the set's a little high, if it sets a little fast, if it's a little inside, it's a little tight, it's a little off, we don't let that be an excuse for why we didn't go slow to fast. It's kind of a non-negotiable, and not just for Virginia, for any attacker, for any team. So I think that's number one. Two, I think just the familiarity and just making sure those two get on the same page. I think sometimes it just takes time.
Yeah.
It takes some trust. It takes, hey, in this situation, I know she's going to be there, and I know in this situation, I know the setter's going to set it here or this speed or this tempo, So you can talk about it all you want. You can watch it on video all you want. It just takes time to get out there and do it.
Yeah.
So, Husker fans would say, if they went back a couple years ago, they would say, well, it seemed like since Harper Murray and Bergen Riley walked on campus or Andy Jackson walked on campus, they were all, on the same speed. So what happened there? Well, they came here in the spring and they got to work on it. And those guys have been playing on USA volleyball teams together since they were 16, 17. So when they got to Nebraska, it wasn't like, hey, my name's Bergen, my name's Andy, my name's Harper. It was, they were playing with each other, sure, not all year round, but, months at a time at various USA things. And of course, different coaches, but, it's nice when you look around and you see familiar faces around, especially when it's a setter-hitter connection. Virginia and Bergen, and it's not like we're anywhere near where we need to be or want to be or where I think it could be. As time will hopefully help that. And, as coaches, we're trying to help facilitate. But at the same time, there's certain things that it just takes some time and some getting used to and some, throw them in the fire and, hey, this is what we did well. This is what we didn't do well. Let's throw it in the fire the next night and let's see if we can make some improvements. So I think a little bit of it's just the time and the fact that Virginia didn't get here until summertime. And, and it wasn't like, hey, we're playing 6-on-6 volleyball every day in the summer. And, you learn way more when you go out there and actually play real matches.
Yeah, absolutely. I know a lot of people made a big thing about, you guys trying out the 6-2 over the weekend, right?
Yeah, we hopped into it for a little bit.
What does that do, though, just even being able to hey, we've seen it now, and maybe we can go to it if need be?
Right. I think that's the fact that we came in and especially Campbell, the two lefties came in, Campbell and Allie, and they did great. I mean, and it wasn't shocking that they did great. They've been playing really well. So they came in, they gave us another option. It gives us a third attacker in the front row. So, for maybe the non-volleyball people out there, when we sub them in, we go from having two front row attackers. Usually for the most part, it's Taylor Landfair and Andy Jackson, and Bergen Riley's in the front row. Harper Murray's in the back row. But now it gives us, it takes out our setter in the front row, and we put Allie Check in, and then Campbell Flynn comes in, who's a very talented setter herself. And now we have three really good front row attackers again. And now Andy has the freedom to kind of hit wherever she wants, versus just having to go behind the setter off one foot. So it gives us that look to where, if we get stuck in a rotation siding outwise, if Bergen's in the front row, we feel confident, hey, we can just jump straight into it. And we've seen it in a match, right? Sometimes it's really nice to talk about all this stuff in practice, but it's like, as coaches and as players and as a team, you feel confident in it when, it's like, wow, it actually worked. We did really well. Those guys came in and sided out really well. Campbell did a great job of either point scoring in transition or siding us out pretty quickly. So the only thing that it really changes for the most part is like passing, in terms of it changes passing formations, and maybe we get certain people passing next to each other that maybe normally don't pass next to each other, which is not that big of a deal because we work on all those combinations in practice. But we sometimes in games, again, just throwing that in and making a change. And I believe when we did that, T. Sigler was in the front row too, so that's just another change. And then the other thing is just it gives another avenue of playing time for two other people that honestly maybe don't get as much as they deserve because they're so gifted and they're really talented at what they do. And we threw them in there, kind of wondering how it's going to go. It did really well, and none of us are shocked because those two have been doing really well all season and even in practice.
Have you ever coached a team this versatile that you can do all these things with?
Not at Nebraska. I had some talented teams, and I was coaching men's volleyball at BYU, and we had some really talented athletes, some gifted athletes, but not since at Nebraska, just because of, we have a really gifted outside hitter that can play 6 rotations in Harper Murray that can do a lot of different things. We have 2 really, really good setters, and when you run a 6-2, that's kind of sometimes that's the deal breaker. If sometimes when you run 6-2s, it's like you have a really good setter and then you have one that is not as great. So it's sometimes you tend to give away points in that person's rotations. And then the nice part is like Campbell Flynn really her setting style. She's more of I'm going to sling it. She likes to set the really fast ball. Bergen can do it, but Bergen tends to be a little more medium tempo, spreads it out. Campbell likes to just kind of send the ball all over the court, and Ali Czech likes to hit the ball fast. So they mesh really well because they're 2 puzzle pieces that fit together really well. Yeah. And it's not like Ali doesn't fit with Bergen or Campbell can't set Virginia, but it's one of those things where they go in and how she wants to play is how Ali wants to play. So it works really well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you can see it when they come in together. Yeah. They definitely have a connection. Ali's actually interning for us.
I heard.
Yeah, so she's on the air with us last night, but she talked about that, though. I just think they have really clicked.
For sure.
So what about, so this is the other sport comparison. Is there, when teams try to take Andy and Rebecca out of it, is there like a box and one for volleyball type of like a junk defense? You can.
The first thing teams will do in general is just serve really hard, right? Mm-hmm. So and that's how I think teams have really tried to attack us. There's more of an emphasis on trying to serve Nebraska really hard. So like for an example, if you look at certain teams that have played us, when you look at their service errors against us versus if you took the average of all their other games, now that we're into the season where we have enough sample size of, hey, how does this team play versus Nebraska versus other teams? Teams have always missed more serves against us versus when they play other opponents. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't necessarily, I don't think their coaches are going, hey, let's miss serves. I think there's a little bit of emphasis on, hey, when we play Nebraska, we need to serve it really tough to try to take away those middles. The other thing, yes, and when you talk about like a box and one defense, or it'd be like playing, in football where like you have a corner with a safety over the top. You have someone underneath the wide receiver, and then basically that receiver's always being doubled. In volleyball, you can do that. Sometimes it's not necessarily, you can do it with 2 people. So like for an example, when Andy goes behind the setter to hit a slide, you can just start sending 2 blockers that way. Or when Rebecca is hitting in the middle, sometimes you can make sure your pin blockers are helping, but also it's just the level of attention the middle's giving in terms of they're not waiting to see if we get set and then jumping. they're almost jumping with us. And that's a few teams have done that in the last month or so, where they know we want to set the middle. If statistically we're good at it, in terms of we're killing a high percentage of those swings. So it makes sense. So how are we going to try to take the middle away? Let's try to serve them tough. And then pin blockers, the blockers on the wings, they're looking to help. Necessarily, they're more paying more attention to helping in the middle than necessarily blocking on their own side. And then the middles, they're not even really looking at where the setter's setting the ball. They're just kind of honing in on Becca and Andy.
Like
and
face
almost
guarding.
and they're jumping with them. So, in volleyball terms, we would call that committing. They're committing on us. And then what they're doing is they're jumping in the direction of where we tend to hit the ball. So for middle, usually you call it wrist away would be to a middle's right, and then cross body where you would swing your arm across your body, so it'd be hitting it to your left. Some middles or some teams are sending their middles and jumping, not even just jumping it like up front and reading, they're like jumping in the direction where Andy tends to hit the ball and Becca tends to hit the ball in certain situations. So there is to answer your question, there is a box and one for especially defending middles, and teams have been using different versions or maybe a combination of the two to try to stop us.
So when that happens, then what's the responsibility and the roles of the pin hitters to get them out of that junk defense?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is just that's also it's kind of on everybody, right? So we want to make sure we pass really well, so that way it allows the defense to take the bait. So it's on setting, and Kelly and Danny do a great job of offensive game planning to, and even during games, like, hey, they're following Andy, they're following Becca, they're jumping with Becca. So Bergen or Campbell knows that situation. Necessarily for the pins, it's not necessarily like a thing we talk to them about. Because at the time when they get set, and if the middle commits on the middle and let's just say we set a ball out to the pin to Harper or Taylor, they usually can feel if there's two bodies there or just one, So it's just for us like navigating like, okay, hey, you're going to have more space. There's more daylight. Let's attack the daylight. So being able to like recognize the situations. But yeah, if they can be super efficient and kill those balls, and Bergen maybe sets them a little more, it forces the other team to, okay, well, if we're going to keep paying attention to the middles,
the other ones are going to be
other people are going to be open, right? So it's like like in basketball where, hey, if you do a box and one on Steph Curry, then he kicks it to Klay Thompson or Draymond Green, and now it's up to them to either make a play or make a shot. Same thing for us. And then the other thing too, I think we've learned too, is on offense, we're so good in the middle. Like, we want to dictate to the team. So we don't necessarily, just because you're playing your box and one or you're committing with the middles, that doesn't mean we don't want to set them. So the other thing we can do is we try to move where the middles are hitting along the net. So you'll see Becca run behind the setter. You'll see Becca run away from the setter. You'll see Andy run the slide all the way out to the pin. You'll see her run it right behind. I know that one's a crowd favorite when she runs like right behind Bergen and like hits it straight down really quickly. Or she'll like fake like she's going behind and then run really fast back in front. So you can also like move kind of like a wide receiver in motion before the play. So you kind of, hey, a corner's trying to jam Ja'Cory Barney. We put him in motion, and now it's really hard to get hands on him because he's like running that way and maybe running some sort of route on the other side where maybe the defense isn't expecting it. Similar in volleyball. So we don't necessarily, just because a team's showing a lot of attention, we don't want to not set Andy and Becca. That would be doing that team a service of, hey, we're committing with them and they're setting away and they're not going to set them. Our philosophy is we want to dictate to the defense what they're doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Brendan actually talked to us last week about the varying routes for the middles that changes that up. So
right. So different routes. And that's also a being able to audible like in certain situations. And then obviously working with the setters to make sure, hey, we're comfortable setting all of them, right? Because we can run the route, but if we never set it, it gets to a point where, well, why are we running this route? Or other teams, good teams are going to pick up, hey, when they run this, they don't set it. So yeah, Andy Jackson might be running this way, but leave that alone. Like, we're not touching it. Good teams will pick up on that. We try to pick up on, hey, this middle's really good, but when she runs over here, they're either not efficient or they just don't set her. So we want her to go over there, kind of a thing. So for us, it's like Brennan and the setters do a really nice job of working on all these different types of routes to where, hey, we feel comfortable running what we want to run and being able to be available and get set.
Fascinating. Great stuff. Okay, speaking of route running and audibles and all of that, how about your nephew, Dylan Raiola, in the start to the season? I want to give you a chance to, because there's some haters outside of Nebraska that are not appreciating the play that he has come out with this season.
I don't pretend. I'm biased, obviously. So, like, I'm going to just be, honest. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm like Dan Orlowski or the Mannings that I was talking about earlier that actually know what it is to play quarterback. I just think, like, the kid is so talented. He's just, like, throwing balls. He's, like, whipping the ball around the field. And he looks like, the other number 15 that plays. I know he, like, physically looks like him to a degree. But, like, the way he throws the ball, it's like not a lot of people can just, like, shoulder square to the target, arm out to the side, sling it around somebody in between two DBs that are looking to take one of our receivers' heads off. It's like the fact that you're even trying that means you're pretty confident in yourself. And for me, he just looks like such a confident kid. And I know in the last game, he probably took a few more hits than we wanted to, but he doesn't look like somebody he is uncomfortable, but it doesn't look like he gets rattled by that. He just gets in there, trusts his guys, takes the next snap, keeps his eyes down the field. He doesn't seem like he's looking at the pass rush. He seems like he's looking down the field, looking to make a play. And I think that's pretty impressive for an 18, 19-year-old. I know there's been a lot of hype about some other quarterbacks around the country, and I feel like in the last couple weeks, that's like really died down. I know one that plays pretty talented at Penn State, one plays at Texas, and it doesn't seem like their preseason buzz is as high as it is now, if that makes sense. But I don't know. It just seems like he's making throws that you're just like, wow, like how, like the degree of difficulty that he's making these throws, and he's completing a high percentage of passes. He's not throwing the ball to the other team. Sure, at the end of the day, like when you're the quarterback in Nebraska, I'm assuming there's a lot of pressure for you to win, and you're as good as your last game and whether your team won, and I know Dylan knows that. But I don't know. I just think the kid is special, and he's making everybody else around him better for the most part, it seems like. And, I listened to, Coach Rule or, Coach Holgerson's stuff on Dylan in terms of like, he's able to get the boys into the right play on the fly. Like, I can't imagine like how hard that is to be able to like, I know Michigan has a defensive coordinator that's been coaching the NFL forever. I'm sure they were giving him some NFL looks and then on the snap drop into something else. And it wasn't like we couldn't move the ball against those guys, and I know they turned the pass rush up at the end and they ran the ball against us, but I don't know. It seems like there's a different feel around that program. I don't know, just from looking at it, like comparing it to maybe some years ago, it feels like we have a lot of guys that belong in playing in a level of game that, was against Michigan. And I'm fired up to see what they do against Michigan State on Saturday. Absolutely.
I think we were talking about that last night. Like, as much as people want to maybe knock the fact that Dylan, the comparisons to Patrick Mahomes, but there's not very many people that can do what Patrick Mahomes does. So
yeah, it's just the way he throws the ball, right? It's like his arm talent. Whether it was learned or I don't want to pretend to know, but you just see how he's throwing the ball. It looks a lot different than even honestly some of the other quarterbacks around the country that are, they're going to be first round picks. And I know Dylan's not eligible for the draft this year, nor do we want him to leave anytime soon. But, you just look, you just kind of comparison. You're like, whoa, like the way that person throws the ball is different. And the fact that he can move a little bit and the fact that it seems like, hey, he's checking us into a lot of good plays. He's throwing a lot of balls to where it's either our guys are catching it or nobody's catching it, and sometimes sometimes the best throw you can throw is the one into the stands, sometimes if that's the play and what the play is called. And I don't know, just even the Cincinnati game, right? Where, offense wasn't humming, but sometimes as a quarterback, you just, hey, make the play to win the game.
Yep.
And sometimes it's not forcing the play that's going to lose you the game, which is what the Cincinnati quarterback did, right? They were running the ball, and then they throw a bomb when they were having success running the ball, and we make a pick, and that's kind of why we won. Like, to a degree, sometimes, volleyball too, it's like sometimes games are not won, they're lost, you know? And sometimes I know we want to win the game, but sometimes the game might call for, hey, for our sport, let's serve it in, hit it in. And sometimes that's going to be good enough to win, and that's okay. And then the next day, the game calls for, we need to be more aggressive, we need to kill balls, we need to serve aces. I would assume other sports are the same way, football the same way. We need to score some more points. We need to go for it on fourth down. Some other games are, we take care of the ball, play great defense, special teams, make sure the field's flipped in our advantage, and we got to make some field goals, you know? So, again, I don't want to pretend like I know football, but I feel like all sports, the greatest players and the greatest coaches can understand what do I need to win today? And then understand that tomorrow it might call for something a little different.
Yeah, love it, love it. Okay, let's circle back here. This weekend, you got a back-to-back on the road Big Ten play at Penn State on Friday and at Rutgers on Saturday. I know Penn State's got some things they're trying to figure out, but it's still going to be electric, and that's still a big-time matchup on Friday night for you guys.
Oh, yeah. Just two volleyball programs that I think really respect each other based off of the two now former head coaches. You know, I think John and Russ really respected each other, and obviously, you know, we tend to get in each other's way of what we want. And, you know, we have a ton of respect for that staff. I think they have a ton of respect for us. And, you know, just when Penn State, Nebraska is on the schedule, if you're a volleyball fan, it's like you're circling that, whether if you're a Texas or Wisconsin, Stanford, Florida fan. I think a lot of people will be tuning in. Really gifted athletes on that side of the net. Two kids that used to play for us that I still personally really care about. And, you know, I'm super fired up that they're getting a million opportunities to play and play really well, if I'm being honest. So it should be a fun, and every time we go to rec hall, it's always, you know, they got the students with the whiteboard, and the students and the men's volleyball team are usually right there, like, you know, arm's distance away from the girls, and, you know, making it a really, really cool college sport, not just volleyball, but a college sports environment. And, I mean, they have some pretty unbelievable athletes. I know, obviously, I think it's kind of been documented what's going on there to a degree. But, you know, all in all, I don't expect anything less but their best effort, and they're going to play a great match. And, you know, it tends to always go 5 when we play those guys. And if it does, if I'm being honest, it's one of the matches you come to Nebraska for to play and coach at, is to coach against Penn State at Rec Hall, and usually the crowd, a lot of them are wearing white. So
yeah. Okay, and then how do you balance too just the back-to-back with the schedule and the travel and all of that? That's coming off the Penn State to Rutgers. I mean, what goes into that and being successful back-to-back days?
I think we really haven't. I guess we've done it one time this year, or a couple times.
Second time home though, right?
Yeah. Well, one time we did in Nashville. No, we had a day in between. You're right. Yeah. So it was at home. So this time, you know, for people out there, we'll play Penn State. And then we'll get on a plane and head over to New Jersey, or we'll technically go to Newark and then drive into New Jersey. So that kind of presents a challenge on its own. I think a lot of it too, though, is, hey, hopefully all the work we did in the summer and the spring, the girls did in the summer and then we did in the spring with them, like strength conditioning, recovery-wise, like hopefully that comes to fruition both Friday and Saturday, just because we expect honestly, I mean, why wouldn't you expect us to go 5 with Penn State on Friday? It always does, you know. But so a really physical, long, emotional match on Friday, and then we're gonna have to turn around and play. And I got to watch them on video today. A really physical and talented Rutgers team that's playing really well. Their numbers are really, really well. And I know people in the past have, you know, oh, Rutgers. I think this Rutgers team is really talented. They have some returners. They have a nice mix of some new players that played at other schools and some returners that honestly have gotten a lot better from the last time I saw them play, which was, I think it was at the beginning of November last year. But a lot of it too is honestly just keeping our team focused on what's now. And now is practice today, practice tomorrow. We go to Penn State. Again, we're going to play in an awesome environment there. And then we turn our attention. Then we turn our attention to Rutgers and not look ahead and not worry about something we can't worry about. It's hey, we're all on Penn State right now, and then we turn our attention to Rutgers starting, 20 minutes after the Penn State game. We'll give them 20 minutes to worry about what happened against Penn State.
Fantastic stuff as always. Appreciate your time and best of luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Jaylen Reyes here with us on The Dig. Emeritus is proud to power The Dig and all of Husker women's sports. Thanks for listening and watching. And as always, make sure you subscribe and like wherever you listen to never miss an episode right here on the Huskers Radio Network podcast.